Welcome to Friends in Fiction, 5 best-selling authors, endless stories. Friends in Fiction is a podcast with 5 best-selling novelists whose common love of reading, writing, and independent bookstores bound them together. With chats, author interviews, and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, these friends discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place. Best-selling novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Christy Woodson Harvey, Patti Callahan Henry, and Mary Alice Monroe are 5 longtime friends with more than 80 published books to their credit. At the start of the pandemic, they got together for a virtual happy hour to talk about their books, their favorite bookstores, writing, reading, and publishing in this new uncharted territory. They're still talking, and they've added fascinating discussions with other best-selling novelists. So join them live on their Friends and Fiction Facebook group page every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, or listen and view later at your leisure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friends in Fiction, our weekly Facebook Live show featuring author chats in support of independent bookstores. 5 best-selling authors, endless stories. Our community of readers here on Friends in Fiction has grown today to 17,000 members.
Woo-hoo!
And we could not be happier to welcome you here tonight. So let's get started. We have so much to talk about tonight. I'm Patti Callahan Henry, and I'm your host tonight. And my latest book is Becoming Mrs. Lewis.
And hi, I'm Mary Alice Monroe, and my latest novel is On Ocean Boulevard.
And I'm Mary Kay Andrews, and my latest novel is Hello Summer.
I'm Kristin Harmel, and my latest novel is The Book of Lost Names.
I'm Christy Woodson Harvey, and my latest book is Feels Like Falling.
And this is Friends in Fiction, and we are so happy that you're here. Tonight, as you can see, it's just the 5 of us, and it's not just, because the 5 of us are the original posse who got together at the very beginning of the pandemic to start this show. And we're here tonight to talk to each other and answer some of the fascinating questions y'all sent in this week. And at the end of tonight's episode, Mary Alice will be announcing our fall schedule, and y'all, you do not want to miss this. We had no idea what was going to become of this show, and wait till you hear about our guests. But before we get rolling, everyone, I want to remind you that every week we feature an independent bookseller, and this week we're working with one of my very favorites, Page and Palette in Fairhope, Alabama. This store has actually showed up in one of my novels, Coming Up for Air. And I disguised the town and the bookstore with a different name, but anyone who has been to Fairhope or anyone who has been to Page and Palette will know that that's who it is. This store is an anchor in this beautiful waterfront city, and it is a bookstore that is family owned for generations. As their logo states, there's a story here, and they don't just mean the books. They've built a welcoming, wonderful environment for authors and readers, and some of my favorite events over the years have been at Page and Palette. Tonight, they will be giving us a 10% discount on all of our releases and new releases, and you can find them on the Friends and Fiction page under announcements. And I'll repost it after we finish tonight. So here's my favorite part, ladies. We're going to be talking tonight. So I have some really great questions for everyone. And as everyone knows, a few of us have been doing writing sprints together in the morning, and we've been kind of lifting each other up during this really difficult time and encouraging each other as we write our books. And we come on this show and we talk so much about our triumphs, because there is nothing better than celebrating after a long slog of writing and publishing horrors. But our listeners and y'all out there don't always see the downturns and the hard parts. And it's not because we're hiding them, but because we celebrate the good stuff. So there is a fantastic essay by one of my favorite writers who is passed on, Nora Ephron. And it's this essay about failure. And even the title is hilarious because she's hilarious. And it's called Flops, I Have a Few. This is the woman who wrote Sleepless in Seattle and Harry. She has huge hits. You wouldn't think she had flops. And there's a quote in that essay that says, but that flop just sits there in the history of your life, like a black hole with a wildly powerful magnetic field. And she's being sarcastic at best, but true at worst, because we can have 1,000 wonderful things happen, but failure still sits there with a magnetic field. And there is no way to have a full literary career without failure and rejection. So I want to talk to each of you about that. Is there one moment of failure that almost derailed you from this writing career? Or one failure, insult, or negative comment that could have made you quit, but instead did the opposite and spurred you onward? For me, there were many, but for example, I was secretly writing about 20 years ago. And this is way before the internet, way before I knew that there were book clubs or book groups. I didn't know any writers. And I entered a contest for Writer's Digest. And I got my score sheet back. And it told me that my writing was dull, dreary, dark, and depressing. I memorized it. And so I felt like there was an elevator in the middle of my gut that just plummeted. And I did quit for a little bit until I didn't. So I want to hear about those things for you. Mary Kay?
Well, you know, I was a journalism major in college and worked in newspapers. And I was a reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And I had been working in the features department, but I wanted to go back to news. And so I went to the managing editor of the paper at the time. And at first I'd gone to my features editor and he said, no, you can't, you can't move. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go to your boss. So I went to his boss and he looked at me and he said, you don't understand. We need real writers in news.
Oh.
You are not a real writer. You have no discernible style. You need to.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ouch.
He said, you need to just understand that you are, as a reporter, you're mediocre and you'll never be a writer. And so, of course, he wanted to keep me in the department I was in, but I was devastated. Just devastated. I went home in tears. I cried every day for weeks and weeks. I went to the man who had hired me and said, and this guy he was sort of a mentor to me at the paper, and I told him what Eddie had said to me, and he said, that is not true. You're one of the best writers I've ever hired. You have a great career ahead of you, and don't listen to him. And so I decided, I wrote myself a little mantra that I would recite every day. They don't get to define me. They don't get to put their foot on my neck. And I would, I would chant it when I drove home every day. I would cry every day when I drove home.
Happy.
You paid your dues.
I cried. Yeah. But the thing is, it spurred me. It made me understand that there was not going to be a place. I was not going to have the career I wanted in journalism, and I'd already started thinking about trying to write fiction, and that really kind of hastened my decision that it was time to go. That I was never going to get, that other people were going to keep me from having the career I wanted. So I thought, okay, I'll reinvent myself. So that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. I hope you're sending. I was going to say, I hope you're sending Eddie every New York Times bestseller you have.
It's interesting. It's interesting, Kristen. People tell me that whenever I tell that story, and I tell it a lot. he doesn't have to know because I know.
You were absolutely right. And you know what? Maybe he was meant to be there to put you on the path that you're on, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, he did me a favor, but at the time,
I feel like we should take that quote, "You don't get to define me," and make some stickies out of it and like.
Well, it makes me think of that other quote, "Don't let the turkeys get you down," because he's obviously a turkey. He was obviously protecting his own turf, and he saw you. He probably saw your talent. And also, women have had a particularly hard time in journalism.
Yeah.
All right, Kristen Harmel.
Good story.
Yeah,
awesome.
Mine is actually sort of similar, but it was during my novel writing career. So I started off writing chick lit. My first book came out in 2006. I had written it in 2003, 2004. It was very much the height of, Bridget Jones's Diary and The Devil Wears Prada and those types of books. So it was that type of book. And I had fun writing those, but it wasn't, I don't think it was where I belonged. I don't think it was ever where I belonged. I think what I'm doing now is where I belong. And right around the time I turned 30, which was a little over a decade ago, I think I had just grown up to the point where I was able to say, this is where I want to go. And I had the courage to say it. So I came up with the idea for The Sweetness of Forgetting, which ended up being my 2012 book. And I wrote a very full outline and pitched it to my literary agent at the time. And she called and said, "No, this is not a Kristen Harmel book." And I said, okay, I understand. And she said, "It's not on brand." And I have to really explain, I had no brand, because did any of you know I was writing chick lit? I was not some huge best-selling chick lit author, but still I understood what she was saying. And I said, okay, I'm okay with doing a pseudonym. We can, just start from scratch. But this is what I want to be doing. I don't see myself continuing to write chick lit. I want to write historical fiction. And she said, "Quite frankly, I just don't think you can." And and she was
Christy, I hope everybody's looking at Christy's face. Go on, Christy. Sorry.
Yeah, it was so she I don't really have any negative feelings for her because she was a great agent, but kind of like the story you just told, Mary Kay, I needed that push. I needed that push, because if she had just said, "Yeah, go ahead, sure, we'll see what we can come up with and we'll try to sell it," I don't think I would have been as motivated. But as it was, I had to make a decision. Do I keep doing what I'm doing, or do I follow my heart? And I chose to follow my heart. And I left that agent, which was so unsettling. I mean, if you're in this business and you're in the middle of your career and you don't have an agent, that's not a great thing. But it worked out okay. That book, before it came out even, had done better than all my previous 6 books combined. So I guess it turns out I could do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like there's always that one comment, like the dull, dreary, dark, and depressing, that makes you say, am I going to believe it, or am I going to prove them wrong? And Mary Kay, you're not good enough, or you can't do it. We either believe it, or we say, okay, I'm going to do the double down and I'm going to prove you wrong.
But it's
maybe
hard.
That's the biggest difference.
It's hard when it's someone who's in a position of authority over you, or someone whose taste and opinion you really respect. It's not just Joe Schmo writing an Amazon comment or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's someone whose opinion you trust.
It's so true.
Yeah. Fortunately, this editor, I knew he didn't know what he was talking about.
You're right, because for me, it was a judge. For you, it was an agent. For you, it was a boss. So, okay, Christy Woodson Harvey.
I don't even know that I was going to tell the story, but now that you told yours, and it was so great, and it reminded me of, like, you do remember those words. I had signed with a literary agent who was representing me for a book that I wrote before Dear Carolina, which ended up being my debut novel. And I submitted Dear Carolina to 2 writing contests because they both had final round judges that were editors that I knew were people that I wanted to work with. But, you had to be like one of the top 3 or whatever for the editor to read your manuscript. So it was kind of a long shot, but I thought I'll just keep opening doors while my agent's over here working. And so I get my score sheet back. It's the first feedback I've ever gotten on Dear Carolina. And one of the judges, I'd written the book in second person, which, as we all know, is like kind of a no-no, but it it worked for the story. And so she wrote this long thing telling me why I couldn't do it, and said that the story was uncomfortably voyeuristic. I'll never forget it.
What?
Yeah. And I was
I have to think about that for a minute.
Right? I guess because you were like seeing into these two mothers telling this story to their child. I don't know. I don't know. But I was crushed, and I thought I sort of took this risk, and I shouldn't have done this, and this was a terrible idea, and like I've just wasted all this time writing this book, and I thought it was so, you know, I thought it was going to be this really great book. And so about 2 weeks later, the sheets came back from the second contest that I had entered, and I had won the contest. And the final round judge was an editor at Penguin, and she bought the book.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
That's the best ending.
One person's uncomfortably voyeuristic is another person's book deal.
I'm sorry, that judge reminds me a little bit of a one-star wonder on Amazon.
Right? No, but I mean, it was just, but it is in that moment when you're so, you don't know. And I was definitely coming from a place of like, I went to journalism school, but I also did a lot of creative writing. And I remember like, I would look around the classroom and we would be, you know, reading our stuff, and I would be like, I'm just not like everybody else. Like I'm not writing, you know, they were all writing these like really dark, twisty stories, and I wasn't, you know, and I was, and I remember I would always think like, I can't be a writer because these people sound like real writers and I'm not like them. And so it was just like one more thing saying, oh, you're not a real writer. And then, I mean, it ended up okay, but we all have those moments for sure.
Some people just, I don't know, some people really don't understand that a good critique doesn't mean find something to be critical about. A good critique is to find something that is good, that you want to be encouraging. They just can be really nasty. And I think some reviewers too out there just find a way of being particularly nasty. And it's like their calling card. And I just think, what a waste of air and space.
Well, we all look at the things we read through our own lens or mirror. And to be cruel with whether it's an alliteration with all the D words you can think of, or calling something voyeuristic, doesn't help anybody, right? Yeah. Taking somebody else down a couple pegs doesn't help you or that person. And so, okay, Mary Alice, I want to hear your story. What is like the one thing that could have derailed you, or the one insult, but you took it the opposite and ran with it?
It's a little different than yours, because I really, you know, while I've been listening to you, I can identify with each of your stories. There's a similar one for me. But the one that really almost derailed me completely was nothing to do with anything people said. It was my own health. You know, it was, I was hemorrhaging. And before that, I was in a writer's group and with friends, and people were getting published ahead of me. And I wasn't in any hurry. I mean, I wanted to cross the line, but I was a young mother at the time, sort of like y'all down in the lower corners there. And I had time, but I also knew it was going to take time. So I finally wrote a book called The Long Road Home, which my family calls The Long Road to Publication. And it was finally picked up, and it was supposed to be a big launch hardcover from, and I won't say the publisher's name, from a major publisher. And this was 1990, so it would have been really early in my career, really would have set me off for my first novel. And there was this huge upset, as sometimes happens, as all of you know, in publishing houses, where my editor was fired, who was a big editor, and big shakeup of the whole publishing house. I was not out, but I was on hold. Like I was an orphan in the publishing house. So if that wasn't bad enough, I started, and maybe it was emotional, I don't know, I started to hemorrhage. And truly sick, life-threatening. So it was, and my health has never been all that great. So this was one of the times that I got truly sick. And I remember coming out of it after about 6 months, thinking I waited so long to cross the line to publication. You know, you just want to cross the line. And everyone would say to me things that I say to people like, you know, you're still a writer, whether you're published or not. And I knew that. but you want to cross the line. You want to get published. So this was my big deal, and suddenly it just was on hold. So I remember thinking maybe this wasn't meant to be. Maybe I should go back to teaching. I love teaching, and I should just do it. And I started applying for teaching jobs. And it was literally, it was 2 weeks before I had to sign a contract, and I was just hemming and hawing and waiting. And we heard that the book was coming out from hardcover to mass market. Horrible cover, but I was in the game. I was in the game. And so it sold, it got published, and the rest is history. But I remember thinking at that time that there was something inside of me where I knew this was it. Yeah. This was what I wanted to do. It was my calling. And I saw it. I mean, y'all know, you just saw I'm going to be a writer. And it's just, no matter how it happens or how long it takes, it's going to happen. But I think you get beaten down to a point, or even health, where you sometimes think either how many rejections can I take, or how many more years am I going to put into this effort. But that line that I wanted to cross the line, you're a writer, whether you're published or not, I think I actually really understood it, because I knew I was going to keep writing. If that book didn't get published, I was going to write another and another and another. Not just to get published, but because I couldn't stop.
Because you were a writer.
Because I was a writer.
Yeah, which is that whole being in the arena thing. So there's this fantastic quote, we've all heard it. Brene Brown has the book Daring Greatly. It's by Roosevelt, and he says, "Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails by daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." And so, ladies, we have been in the arena, man. We have done it. So how do you do it? How do you stay inspired? How do you stay in the arena? What keeps you creative? What keeps you going? Mary Kay, tell us.
I think part of it is I write commercial fiction, and we all really write commercial fiction, I think. And so I write a book a year, and this is my job, and I have to keep filling up the creative well. And so reading good books, watching television, getting out in the world, and it's a matter of habit for me. So someone will say something and I'll think, I can use that in a book. I'll steal that. I mean, we're terrible thieves, writers are.
We're horrible.
We're just felons.
And we're liars too.
Liars, yeah.
I always say, especially when I'm meeting new people, I'm like, look, if you don't want it in a book, don't not say it, because you get to the point where you can't remember, did someone say that, or is it just in your head?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's sort of an ingrained part of my habit of being. So, I'll be out and I'll see something, and what happens usually is I'll see something the way it happened, and then I'll think, well, what if it had happened this way? Yeah. What if she's backing out of the parking lot at church and she rear ends the new minister? I don't know. And I think that's
just started a new book.
I know, when do I get to get that one?
Right there.
That's the only thing I know, and being out in the world, and I'll tell you realistically, I'm ashamed to say it. It turns out I'm competitive. And I can't stand the idea that I don't have a book coming out. And I want each book to be better. I want my writing to get better with every book. I've never been satisfied with a book after it's come out. And so that's part of it, the elusive idea that you know, if I keep going, maybe I'll get better. Maybe I'll be able to pull it off.
That's such a powerful statement, because I think it's very inspiring too that I haven't written my best book yet. It's still coming. That's so great.
I love it. And I don't think we could keep doing what we are doing if we didn't have a little competitive edge, because yes, it's about creativity, but it's also about writing better and then stretching our limits and doing a little bit more. And that's one. Okay. So Kristen Harmel, how do you do it? How do you stay in the arena? What keeps you going when half the time we get knocked down and bloodied and have to stand back up? What keeps you going?
Honestly, right now, the four of you, seriously, I mean, this has been, I would say that right around the time we were starting Friends in Fiction, it was the worst my writing life has been in a long time, just because you know, I was really struggling. It was sort of the beginning of this pandemic. Everything had changed. You know, I went from having a 20-hour work week to having a 0-hour work week because I had my child home with me. And it was you guys. The four of you taught me there was a way forward. You made me want to show up. You made me feel inspired. And then, you know, this community that we're a part of, this Friends in Fiction community, knowing that all these readers were out there and they were so kind and encouraging. I'm just, this book I'm working on now, and I bet you that the four of you have the same opinion about it. It feels different to me because I'm interacting with readers in a way that I haven't before. And I feel supported by readers every single day in a way that I haven't before. Yeah. And that's making me feel inspired as a writer, but also really inspired to deliver the absolute best book I can deliver, because I want to give, like, these people who are showing up for me, like, I want to show up for them. But bottom line, the four of you, I mean, thank you. You've changed my writing life, and I can't imagine it without you now.
Oh, so now we need some Kleenex. But I think all five of us would say the exact same thing.
For sure.
I think that I said it in an Instagram post. When you know somebody's going to ask, did you do it today? You want to be able to tell the truth, right? So that's one way to so okay, Christy Woodson Harvey, how do you do it? How do you stay inspired?
Yeah, I mean, and there's no way, I mean, truly, there's no way that I would be in the position that I am right now, having my 2022 book almost ready for action if it weren't for y'all. I mean, there's no way. And I do agree. I mean, I think Friends in Fiction for sure, but just the reader community at large. And like yesterday, I announced that Under the Southern Sky is coming out April 20th, 2021. And when you see those, like when people come on and they're like, I can't wait, I'm so excited. It drives you in a way that you can't experience on your own, because you don't only want to be better for yourself, but you want to be better for every person out there who took $17 that they could have spent on something else and spend it on your book. Like it drives you in a way that you want to give them the best experience that you can. And I think writers are different than what I thought. Like, and I look at all of you and I think it's something that we have in common, and we've sort of touched on it, but I do think that we all have, I don't know if even a competitive streak is the right term, but we're all very driven to succeed. So even if that competition is just with ourselves, we're all very driven toward that next thing. And I think I pictured writers as being like, la, 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 la. And I'm sure a lot of them are, but I don't think we're like that. You know, I think we're all like, more words, next page, new book, better title, better cover, more people, more readers. You know, we're all just like, we're in it. And I think it does drive you when you know that people enjoy what you do. It makes you want to be better, and it makes you want to keep doing it.
And Christy, it's what we keep talking about. It's not just that, it's that, and Mary Kay Andrews says it best. All boats rise if we're doing it together, right? Yep. I start poking holes in the boat our boat rises together when we're, okay, Mary Alice Monroe, how do you
The problem with coming last is I could just say, yeah, what they said.
Okay, you're first on the next question. You're first.
So, I mean, honestly, it's all true. And I think what's interesting, and maybe the readers can, or the viewers today can identify with, is that all of us have had to deal with the pandemic and being alone and being, wary of going out, not seeing each other in person, not seeing you out there. And I do feel that inspiration has been easy to find in some ways. Like we had a show on one of our earlier shows about how each one of us some of us are doing poetry in the morning, reading more books, different ways to individually. And then, of course, our Friends in Fiction. And I just feel that it's really important to carry that on after pandemic, just to remember to find ways to be inspired every day and to not slip into maybe patterns that we were able to eliminate as our schedules changed. That what are the best new things we're doing, and can we sustain them? So perhaps that's the inspiration for the future.
And I think when we're talking to whoever's listening out there, it's so weird not to be able to see you while you see us. But to translate it, I think it's a little bit about y'all finding the people who support you, right? Because that's one of the ways that we stay inspired, is by having people who support us. And instead of enmeshing yourself with people who are trying to drag you down, why don't you get tangled up with people who lift you up, i.e. these women? Okay, so another idea that seems so glamorous in theory is book tour, right? Every time an author is on a TV. Did y'all see The Affair? Did y'all watch that show on Netflix?
Yeah,
just a couple, not the whole thing.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with Ruth Wilson. But anyway, he's an author and he has a book come out and he has an entourage who goes on book tour with him. And all these shows about authors, they have an entourage. And I know that at least once, the entourage was my children. So,
me too.
yeah, exactly. So I'll go for double dare you, because I'll go first. When I first had a book out, it's called Losing the Moon. It's 2004. And I was asked to speak at a luncheon. I mean, this is a long time ago. And I was in the ladies' room and I was in the stall and heard two women talking about me outside the stall. Yes. So now I want to hear
what they saying.
Oh, they were like, this is a long time ago. She's too young. Who does she think she is? Why is she at our talk today? Why is she lecturing us? Who does she think? I came out and I know it was gosh. But it's like something out of a Sex in the City.
I love that you came out and waved, because in the TV show, they're always like hiding in the stall. And I'm like, who are you? I would be like, oh. How you feel?
I washed my hands and I smiled and I walked out. I didn't say a word. And like for about a month, I kept thinking of what I could have said in that moment.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. That's the best thing about writing books, is we get to think about it for a week and then have the exact right comeback. So I want to hear about some of your book tour, most embarrassing book tour stories. And we're going to go backwards. Mary Alice.
Well, I had a hard time. There have been so many.
Just pick one. Right? We have to
pick one. And I'm going to try and tell the story without like getting myself sued, because I won't name the author's name. But it was early on, and it was when I
know this one.
You do. Yeah. So I can't say everyone knows the author too. So it was when The Beach House came out. And you have to understand, it was my first New York Times hit. And I was driving from store to store with my entourage, my sister Ruthie, who was driving me for free from store to store to store. And I got to after I made the Times list, suddenly things opened up and they put a dump, which is that rack of books in the front of the store. And, managers would actually show up and have flowers out for me. So it was a big deal. So I was in, I won't even say the name of the town, coastal town in Florida. And it was the hometown unbeknownst to me, of this particular author who had a book coming out in the future of a similar title. And
come on, it was the exact same title.
It was the exact same title.
I know who it is. I know who it is.
And I remember, because there were sea turtles, and I was supposed to speak. It wasn't just a signing. I was supposed to speak to the volunteers. And I invited my brother-in-law and his mother, who we called her my aunt. So I show up, and you know you're in trouble when you get to the parking lot and it's dark. There are no cars anywhere. So you walk in and you get to the front window, no sign, nothing. And I walk in, and maybe one or two people in the store, and two other people, my aunt and my brother-in-law, who came to see the famous author, and I could see this in their eyes. You're like, poor Mary Alice, what a loser. And I walk in, and I'm totally confused. This was my big deal that I was so excited about. And the assistant manager, I flagged, and I said, hi, I'm Mary Alice Monroe, and where are my books? I'm supposed to do a presentation tonight to a group of turtle volunteers. Oh, I don't know, we'll make this work. And he pulled a table out, and he grabbed a couple dusty books from the boxes and put them on. And I'm sitting there, and I'm a good soldier, and I'm signing the 6 books that he had. And I finally said, after a while, you know, my aunt, I signed one for her and one for my brother-in-law. And I said to the assistant manager, I said, you know, I was supposed to speak tonight. What happened? And he kind of did. A particular author came into the store and had seen the book, the dump, and the signs for this presentation, had a hissy fit. And he said, you know, take it all down. This is my home store. Get rid of it. And the manager did, which was, you know, I can't think of many store managers I know today who would have done it. So anyway, I signed the 6, and after like a half hour, I said, well, I guess I could go home.
Yes, we're done.
So yeah, so Ruthie drove me to the, I think it was a Marriott, and I went to the bar, and they were closing down, and I said, I need a drink. And I had seen Sex and the City, which was really popular. I said, I want a Cosmopolitan. And he said, and I told him my story. He gave me like a 16 ouncer in a styrofoam cup with a straw. And I went out, and I'm drinking my drink. And I went out to the pool, and I got halfway across the pool, and I started going under. I knew that Cosmo started hitting, because it was on an empty stomach. Oh, so no. I came back, and Ruthie pulled me in, and I think I emptied the contents of my stomach for most of the night. Oh, God. I thought I was going to die. And all I know is I never believed, that was my big night, my first big night. And it was just the most horrible that someone would do that to anyone else, that would just take their moment away. So that's one for the books.
That's an embarrassing story. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I won't say his name. It's a him.
How about you, Christy?
Mine is similar. So when my first book had come out, you know, I was very careful. Like, I knew, obviously, I'd never written a book. No one had ever heard of me. I mean, I wasn't going to have big events. So I only booked events in places where I had friends that would like rally their friends or family or people I could stay with. Cause I mean, I think I had it was the tiniest book tour budget ever. And, which I was thrilled to have any book tour budget, so I'm not complaining. But I thought, you know, but a store about an hour from where I live asked me to do an event. And I was like, sure, absolutely. And it was a Barnes & Noble. And I had done some other Barnes & Noble events, and they would sort of set a table up in the front of the store, and I would, you know, say hello to people when they walked in, and I'd usually sell a few books and sign some stock. And that was great. Like, it was a great day for me at that time. So I'm going to this town, and I don't know anyone there. So I don't have anyone to invite. I have no friends, but I'm just assuming I'm going to go sit at the table. So I get to the store, and I go up to the counter, and I say, I'm Christy Woodson Harvey. I'm here for a book signing. And they're like, oh, good. You're going to be speaking back here. And I'm like, oh, no. And so it's one of those Barnes & Nobles that has one of those huge event areas. And I go back there. There's one woman sitting in a chair, and there are like 60 chairs set up. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know anyone. No one's going to make this event. And they start wheeling these boxes of books out. I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But it was fine. I got through it. And, you know, we all have to do it. But there are moments of glory in there too. So they balance, right?
Yeah.
But we all have that story where we went into one person. And what I always do is go sit down and just talk to the person. And sometimes you meet the most interesting people.
Yeah, I would have done that knowing what I know now. But, you know, at the time, I think there ended up being like 3 people there. And if that happened to me today, I would go sit with those 3 people and we'd chit chat and it would be fine. But then I didn't know what to do. So I felt like I had to stand up there and like speak behind the podium.
Oh no, the one.
It was bad.
Okay, Kristen Harmel, you have at least one. I know you do.
So for one of my early books, back in the mid 2000s, I was all, you know, like I am now, wheeling and dealing and trying to, you know, figure out how to do this. And and I had gotten a liquor sponsor for my book tour, meaning that they would, you know, they were going to provide the liquor and we were going to do like a specialty drink. And they came to me, the liquor sponsor, and said, you know what? We love this. We want to throw you a party at the W Hotel in New York. I think it was the one in Union Square. I can't remember anymore. But so I was so excited. I brought this to my publisher. We had this whole thing. I flew up there with my friends and my sister and my aunt and like just a bunch of people. You know, I was going to have this big launch party at the W. We were walking in and I get a call on my cell phone and it's the liquor sponsor saying, unfortunately, they're withdrawing their support. It was maybe an hour and a half before the party. They were no longer going to pick up the bar bill. So they had already paid like whatever like room reservation fee to like, you know, book this event space at the W. But so this was one of my early books. I did not, my early books, I could not have supported myself writing the books. My book contracts, my advances were 15,000, like 15,000. And that plus my magazine job, like that was, I didn't have any money. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I could just be like, oh yes, I'll just pick up the bar bill for everybody. Yeah. No. So after saying to the publisher, like, look, I'm having a party at the W. And they were like, yay. I had to go to the publisher and be like, would you mind picking up the bar bill for the party at the W?
Oh no, I think she wins.
That is so I think awful. She wins. You do. You win.
It was so horrible. The only choice of beverage was the cheapest thing on their event menu, which was like some cheap white wine. You could have white wine or you could have water. And I spent the entire party like just trying not to cry. So like
okay, do you all out there see what we go through? Like
you win.
You think
we really care if you come.
Right.
We really
so if you're leaving us that 1-star review to put us back in our place, we've
already been put.
We already are there.
In the place, yeah.
We have been humiliated over and over again.
I can't tell you how many times I sat in a group, like back in Borders, when you talked in the food section, and you'd be up there with your mic, and you'd be like, "Hi, everybody," and people are like, "Leave me alone," and you just want to start feelings, nothing more than feelings.
Okay, Mary Kay Andrews, had at least one, right?
Oh God, so many. An early book tour. I was doing something with my son before I went on the road, and I got to, I think I was in Washington, D.C., and I had pink eye.
Oh,
and so my eye was like oozing and red and swollen, and I had to wear dark glasses. No one would get near me. Then there was a time I was at a Christmas festival in this little small town. And I was the luncheon speaker, and during lunch, my stomach started rumbling, and I started feeling really hot. I got a stomach bug. Thank God, I don't know how I got through it. I did, but I had to say to the festival organizers had somebody, assigned to help me to, get me back. And I just said, we were supposed to have some others. I said, get me to my hotel.
Yes.
She had to end up going out and getting me medicine. I did a signing at a chain bookstore in a dead mall. It was their last night they were open, and I mean the whole mall. So you can imagine that was
Oh, back when Walden Books was still around in the mall, and they used to always put your table right smack in the hall, almost in the hallway.
Yeah.
If you remember those, oh, you youngins might not remember this, but
yeah, they were literally as I was leaving the store 30 minutes after the start of the signing, they were literally turning out the marquee lights outside. And then there was the signing at another chain store in Savannah, mind you, where I had set, 4 books, and I was at a chain. And I got there and they said, here's the community relations person, CRC, asked for them. And they said, no, she left, she's gone. And so the assistant manager said, okay, well, you're back there at a table. No sign, no nothing. But I had, people in Savannah who were fans who came to the store, and I signed the books. But I was, doing it all myself. There was no one helping me. And about 15 minutes before the signing was to be over, the assistant manager came back, and I had my new hardback, but they also had my my mass market paperback, my backlist. And while I was sitting there, she started ripping the covers off. For those of you, mass market paperbacks are the smaller size paperback books. And so publishers, instead of having stores send them back to them, they rip the covers off, the books go in a dumpster, and the bookstore sends back the covers to get a credit for it. So she was basically ripping my books in front of me, saying, we're not going to sell any of these.
I don't know. She might win on that one.
That's the bar bill. No, the bar bill and the party in New York. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight thinking about that.
The bar bill is horrifying. Okay, we've got to cleanse the palate with some good things. So really good. Kristen, will you remind us really quick of the bookstore of the week?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's Page and Palette in Fairhope, Alabama. It's a favorite of readers and authors alike. They are offering you 10% off our new releases through the page link that Patty has posted on the Friends in Fiction Facebook group page under announcements. So easy to go there, easy to click, and we all have new releases that hopefully would interest you.
So we have been talking so much, which I was kind of afraid was going to happen. So we're going to do this quick lightning round. Y'all have sent in the most marvelous questions, hundreds of them actually, and we promise to try and get to some of them, but also we'll get them in other episodes. So each of us have chosen a question for the other. We didn't get to pick our own question. We picked, and we're going to try and do this in a quick lightning round. Yes. Ready? So, okay, Mary Kay, you're first. Ask Kristen. Ask Kristen.
Okay, yeah. So this is a question for Kristen. Mary Ellen Hawker Hartwick wants to know, how do you organize your story notes? She says, I'm a wannabe author and have been struggling with organizing my thoughts for chapters or for short stories or novellas. So as a historic fiction author, I think this is a key one for you, Kristen.
That's a great question.
Okay, so great question. I would say there are 2 very short answers to that. One, as far as story notes, it all goes into an outline for me. So if I have an idea, I know exactly where it's going to belong. I plug it right into the outline, and my outlines are not bulleted. They're in paragraph form. So if I want to remember something, I might put it in parentheses, or I might even put it in parentheses at the top of the chapter heading, but it all just goes right into that outline. If you're talking about how to organize research, to keep track of all the research, I have a Word document that I instead of writing out like whatever I found in the research, I'll say the Nalibaki Forest book, page 164, and then I'll put a Post-it note in that book. So I'll say exactly what the note's about, where to find it, and then the Post-it note. And then that way, instead of having secondhand or third-hand information, as I'm writing, going back to the source, which I think is really helpful. So great question. I hope I answered it.
Kristen, I'm actually going to steal that. Okay, Kristen, go ahead. You're next.
Okay, I've got one from Cindy Kovac for Christy. And this is, have any of you had book ideas that you are glad you didn't write? If so, what was it and why? So that's for Christy.
A good one.
This is a really good question. And when I first started writing, I had a writing professor at Chapel Hill that I really loved, who Patty is good friends with too. His name's Daniel Wallace, and his most famous book was Big Fish. So probably a lot of y'all have read that. But he said to me, the worst thing that can happen to you as a writer is that you get published too soon. And I think that was such good advice, because I had several manuscripts that I never sent out or, really did anything with. And I'm glad of that. At the time you're so invested in that manuscript and you think it's going to be the one, but I definitely have that syndrome of thinking the next thing I'm working on is so much better than the one before. And I think that was such a good piece of advice. And I'm really glad. That's not exactly the question she asked, but there's nothing that I've wanted to write that I haven't written necessarily, but I'm glad that the things I haven't put out didn't get put out.
That's a good feeling.
That's all. Okay, Christy, you go.
Okay, Patty. Linda Stanko wants to know, what's the longest you have gone without an idea for a new book, and how did you break writer's block? How do you break writer's block?
So I've never been without an idea. I think that what happens is I get stuck wondering if the idea is worth the next couple of years of my life.
Right.
So it's not necessarily, I don't have an idea, oh my God. It's, does the idea I have, is it worthy of the next, especially with historical fiction, it's not just the story idea, it's how long, the research and the reading and the diving down for years. This last book took me 3 years. It was so complex. So I think that it's more for me, not how long it takes for an idea, but how long it takes me to decide what's next. And I think the longest that's been has been probably 4 or 5 months of starting something, putting it away, starting something, putting it away. And as far as writer's block, for me, it's not writer's block. It's not knowing where the story is going next. That for me is a block. And usually when that happens, it means you have to go back a few steps.
Back to research.
Yeah. So, okay, ready, Mary Alice? Here's my question for you. From Kate Agan, I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. She says, I'm reading Mary Alice's Munro's The Summer Guests. Kara and David are boarding up Primrose Cottage. Have any of you ever had to stop in the middle of your writing and evacuate? And
every year,
which brings me real quick to say all of us, all 5 of us, are really thinking about and praying for all of you in the hurricane path in Texas and Louisiana. We have been texting each other and thinking about you and really worried about it. So Mary Alice, I know the answer to this, but tell everybody else, have you had to stop in the middle of your writing and evacuate?
Really, every year. The first one was Floyd, but I didn't even own a house yet. And I was caught in the largest evacuation in American history. I was on the road. And that's why I actually do have PTSD about it. I mean, it's truly the minute, like right now, just you having talked about what's going on in the Gulf makes my heart go pitter patter. And it's lovely to live on an island, but every year you're reminded there's a price to pay. And with climate change, these storms are just getting increased intensity. So my house is 50% boarded up from the last one that didn't even hit us, but we're half boarded up. So it's kind of dark in my office because the shutters are down. We're done. And the minute it gets even close, I board up the house, stop what I'm doing, because my mind is already on freeze. Yeah. That's the trouble. You just can't keep your eyes off the television with all the news repeating itself. So that's why I got a house in North Carolina. Because after Summer Guests, that's an autobiographical story in that was me in the barn with all those horses. And I learned about the horses and then was inspired to write that book. But the whole reality, I've written about hurricanes 5 times, but the whole reality of hurricanes coming, this big monster, is mythological in literary fiction, in literature. So for me to write about it is not only autobiographical, but a theme that I write about a lot. And again, echoing what everyone says, please pause to pray for the people in the Gulf. This is a big one. And I hope that we're able to help them. All right, Kathy.
Okay, what's your question for Kathy?
Yes. Sheila Lane says, and I love this, do you design or get involved with your book covers? And the reason I really like this question for you is I always think you have some of the most beautiful, identifiable covers. I always look for that cute little something you have, either the pelican or the seagull or something really cute. And I know you are involved. So do you want to answer that?
Our theory, I write summer beach books. And so we want a cover that looks inviting. We want it to look like the candy that you'd grab at the checkout counter. So it needs to convey, my editor says it needs to convey a sense of celebration, a sense that you want it and you want to pick it up. So next year we are revamping the look, and I'm really excited about that. I think part of when you write commercial fiction is you want your readers to be able to identify your book just by glancing at it. They don't even need to see what the title is. They need to say, I want to be in that world. So that's what we're doing, and look for a whole new look for us next year.
Which is going to be a big surprise. Yeah, I'm dying for your cover reveal.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's we revealed my cover, and all of us are going to be revealing our covers here. So it's going to be really exciting. Okay, I'm going to talk really fast because we have like 4 minutes.
Oh, yes.
Every week we have a writing tip, and tonight it is from Kristen Harmel. Kristen, give us a writing tip.
You know what? I was thinking with us almost running out of time, here's what I'm going to do. We had a great question from Lynn Carroll Hughes, who asks, what's your advice on seeking an agent? I have a lot of advice to give, so I'm going to write a post. I'm going to put it on our Facebook page tomorrow morning, okay? So look for it tomorrow morning. It'll be up before 8 a.m. And I'll also include the link to the bookseller in there too, so you have 2 ways to get to the bookseller, okay? So also I wanted to remind you, Sunday, our guest for our bonus episode that we're going to be doing, right? We've talked about this already.
Yes.
Is an author.
About to announce that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Real quick, I know that we try to shout out about a debut or something we're loving. Mary Alice, tell us real quick what you were thinking this week.
Okay. This is just a really quick. It's The Forgotten Kingdom by Signe Pike, and I love the book. It's 5th century, and this is the first one was The Lost Queen. This is the second one in the trilogy, and you're going to love it. She's our guest September 16th, I believe, and Patty, you're the host. She's wonderful. She's scholarly. She's so much fun, but this book is serious matter. What did they describe it? They say it's Camelot meets Outlander. That's it. It's really great, and it's so beautifully done. So The Forgotten Kingdom by Signe Pike.
How about you, Christy?
Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona Davis, which we have all loved so much, but we just wanted to give her a huge shout out because she hit the New York Times list. So, yay!
Congrats, Fiona.
We celebrate this.
Book, go buy it and keep her on the list.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, now for some really exciting announcements. I mean, just when you think Friends and Fiction can't get better, it does. And it is because you out there watching and listening and tuning in. On our membership yesterday, on our membership page, we asked people, how did you hear about us? And yesterday I saw one of my favorites. It said, from a stranger at a coffee house. So can we just say we love you, that you are out there talking about us? We are so excited to announce our fall schedule. Mary Alice, after Mary Alice is done rattling through it, don't try and write it down. I'm going to post it on the page as soon as the show is over. But Mary Alice, tell us all about the fall schedule.
All right, Gabe, hold on to your hats, folks. It's amazing. On September 2nd, Etaf Rum. September 9th, Emily Giffen. September 16th, Signe Pike. September 23rd is Just Us. September 27th, Christina Lauren. September 30th, Kathy Reichs. October 7th, Leon Dolan. October 14th, Charlene Harris, just in time for the spooky time of year. October 21st, Elizabeth Berg. October 28th, again, Just Us. November 1st, Viola Shipman. November 4th, Britt Bennett. November 11th, Caroline Levitt. November 18th, JT Ellison and Hank Felipe Ryan. And November 25th, we're going to end it with a Thanksgiving for such a great fall with Just Us.
Oh, I'm so excited. I mean, and all the books that those are associated with. Okay, Mary Kay, I want you to tell everyone about our Sunday brand new bonus episodes called Behind the Book. Tell us.
Yeah, we had so much stuff to talk about. This Sunday, we're starting our bonus episodes, and the inaugural one is with Rachel McMillan. She's a Canadian whose new book, London Restoration, is climbing the charts. She's not only a prolific writer and reader and social media guru, but she's also a literary agent. For those of you who want to get published, you want to be sure and watch that this Sunday. And we'll see your questions rolling in, and we'll be asking her some of them. This will be a fantastic episode, so tune in on Sunday at 5. Sunday at 5 on Friends and Fiction, and we'll post something on the page to remind you.
And Christy, tell us about who you're hosting next week, and we'll say goodbye to everyone.
Next week, I'm so excited to be hosting Ataf Rum. She is amazing. Her novel is A Woman Is No Man. If you have not read it, y'all, I just finished it. It is beautiful and horrifying. And I kept looking at it and thinking, this says 2008. How can this happen in 2008? And then I found out that the story is semi-autobiographical. So if you have not read this story, read it before next week. I mean, it will absolutely blow your mind. And order it from our bookstore of the week, Page and Palette, who is also offering a 10% discount on all of our new releases.
Thanks, Christy. Okay, that was such a fun night, ladies. We could have spoken for hours about this. I have so many questions. Okay, everybody out there, please join us on our Friends and Fiction page to ask us your questions and interact. And join us next week when Christy Woodson-Harvey will be hosting Ataf Room. But before that, join us on Sunday where we'll be talking with Rachel McMillan. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. And thanks for coming. And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.